Now, for business updates across the globe, Rotus Odiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning to all our viewers out there. We kick off with the United States. The inflation numbers that we were previewing yesterday ticked up to 3.7% on an annual basis. The forecast was for 3.6. July was 3.2. So 50 basis point jump on month-on-month basis, 0.6%. This is going to worry. Well, core inflation is what really the Fed is going to be looking at. So, I don't know, do we get one more rate hike or not? We'll have to see what happens. Same story with the ECB. We're going to be expecting Christine Lagarde to deliver that later on today, 12 noon, 1 p.m. Where's the rate now? I think 3.75. They're expecting another 25 basis point hike, probably take it to 4%. They continue to say, if you remember her comments at Jackson Hole in the United States, she said that inflation is still very sticky. Food inflation, energy still is what is pushing up prices in the Eurozone. So the markets will be awaiting her decision on what they decide to do as far as the rates are concerned. So we'll see what happens there later on today. The EU is probing China with respect to subsidies for electric vehicles. So, when we think of subsidies, we talk about it a lot here. It has caused so much brouhaha. But subsidies are supposed to allow you to gain market share. And that's what China apparently is doing. Here is Ursula von der Leyen. Here's what she said.
Price is kept, but global markets are now flooded with cheaper Chinese electric cars. And their price is kept artificially low by huge state subsidies. This is distorting our market. And as we do not accept this distortion from the inside in our market, we do not accept this from the outside.
So what happens? Are they going to introduce tariffs? Are they going to start a trade war with China? China has already responded saying that those comments were out of place, but China has been subsidizing electric vehicles. I say it again and again and again. This is where the future is. This is where everybody is going. At a point, the West and everything are going to stop taking in petrol cars, and whoever is left behind still using fuel guzzling cars, you're going to be in trouble. China is pumping billions of dollars to ramp up production of electric vehicles. We talked yesterday about BP after their CEO stepped down. They have planned $11 billion over 10 years in Germany to build massive electric vehicle charging infrastructure. Arise News, we were in Davos in January covering the World Economic Forum. I saw with my own eyes Tesla infrastructure of electric vehicle charging stations across where we were in Davos, part of the infrastructure they're trying to spread around in Switzerland. Joe Biden, the Inflation Reduction Act, there's a multiple billions that is allocated to electric vehicle infrastructure. So to the fact that it's causing a fight now between the EU, between the Eurozone and China, tells you what's going on. Tesla has been pressured to cut prices in China because of the competition that they're getting from the other car makers there. So, ladies and gents, this is where chips and electric vehicles, that's where the world is going. We have to stay on that. I think we move now to the African continent, the ongoing Aviation Summit. Very interesting comments from the Deputy Minister of Transportation in South Africa. Let's take a listen to what he had to say yesterday in Abuja.
Africa needs to work together for it to promote its Africanness. Typical example, I flew from Cape Town over Abuja to Europe to come back to Abuja again. So generally in Africa, you need to leave Africa to go to Europe to come back to Africa. Summits such as this begin for us to share experiences, to see how do we interconnect African states so that we don't need to go out of Africa to come back. So that's the first thing that we do.
Again and again, we keep hearing this. Well, somebody in South Africa has to fly into Europe to come back into Abuja. It's just such a fragmented aviation space. It needs to be worked out. Festus Keyamo, the aviation minister, he spoke and he says, he's got a roadmap. Let's take a look at that roadmap, although some of these things are coming from the prior administration. So the Aerotropolis, which is basically putting an airport at the center of all business activity in a particular area. I mean, that's, Sirika was talking about that for a while. It hasn't quite happened yet because of the work that it takes to put that together. The MROs, the maintenance, repair, and overhaul facilities. Planes, I mean, and you ask the chair, Mr. Onyema of Air Peace, or any other player in the aviation space, the amount of money it costs to take it's like servicing your car. When you take a plane out of the country to go get service and then bring it back, it costs dollars. They want to do it here. But then the amount of work it would take to set that up is not just something you say at a speech. Then aircraft leasing companies, I thought this was very, very interesting. The amount of money it costs to buy a plane, you're better off probably leasing it for a period of time. But then in order to set that up here, how do you incentivize manufacturers to come in and set that up? Look at what's happening in Brazil and other nations that have steel and what it takes to manufacture these planes. And then he said that they're going to talk to the last comment, he says he's going to talk to the CBM on how to sort out the backlog of trapped funds.
He has given them the forex.
I don't look, see, you see, this is why I worry about first. It's too late. It's already the minister, and there we go. But as much as I'm excited about Wale Edu in Minister of Finance, he's a finance person. He comes from the inside. Dr. Bosun Tijani, Minister of ICT and Tech, he comes from the inside. CC Hub. Mohamed Pate for the Healthcare Ministry. He gave up a job in Gavi to come and become a minister here in healthcare. He's from the inside. Festus Keyamo Aviation, Dele Alake, Ministry of Dele Alake last week said that he has a new deal. You know what the deal is?
Yes.
The deal was to send people to Australia to go and get training. That's what he announced as the deal. So I don't know, you know, look, the aviation, your sarcasm. The aviation ministry, the Ministry of Mines and Steel, I don't know. Anyway, CBN, let's go to FX now. Central Bank putting out a, or was it BDCs, right? I think we'll get to the BDCs first. The BDCs, no, okay, sorry, excuse me. Today's headline, this is in the oil and gas sector. History as the NUPRC, Upstream Regulatory Commission, has picked 42 winners for its gas flare commercialization.
That's
yeah, Rufai is good, but we've been on this gas flare thing for
2016.
Yes, right? And
I know so much about that.
Yeah, you talk about this a lot.
So much about that deal.
The problem is that the regulatory body has really not, you know, stepped on the necks of these companies that are flaring this gas who are losing so much, right? I hope that these 42 companies that have been picked will actually take us forward as far as reducing what we flare because of the amount of waste. Then we get to the BDCs. They are asking the central bank to increase the minimum capital requirement to 350 million naira from 35 million. They say they want to reduce the amount of BDCs that are operating. How this increases supply, it sounds to me like they want to put together an oligopoly, right? You know, and they want to, because I think the more BDCs you have, the better as far as liquidity. Here's a quote from the president of the Association of Real Change Operators. We asked for a merger, consolidation, like 10 BDCs coming to, imagine 10, coming together to fund the 350 million proposed minimum capital requirement to reduce the number of BDCs. It is better so that we can form capacity. Still on FX, the central bank put out a tweet saying that they want to bring to your attention attached messages circulating on WhatsApp that they want to reduce the exchange rates to 1 naira 25 kobo to the dollar. So it's not true. It's not real. The exchange rate now is at 940 on the parallel market, 758 on the INE.
I think with the minister, I think before we talk about this Acropolis and all this big
aviation,
oh, okay. He should just start going to clear the backlog that people like Dr. Abati suffered when they came into the country with their luggage, moving from one terminal to another. That's a very simple problem they can solve. And before he talks about Forex, that the president has ordered that CBN should be meeting with people and giving them Forex, he should just solve that backlog problem first. You see, sometimes we get very high sounding when there are so little things for us to solve.
Quick wins.
Yeah. Just solve the backlog. I mean, when you solve it, we praise you. Like the Minister of Interior, Mr. Atunji, he solved the backlog on passports and all of that. Kudos to him for that. So at least Mr. Keyamo should just at least ensure that people don't have to carry baggage from one place to the other. You should be orderly and be running and don't spend hours in the airport first in the first place before you can clear out all of that. Concerning interconnectivity problem in Africa, it's more or less a colonial problem. Even our sectors, more or less a colonial problem. Another thing they didn't say, he didn't say that much, is the multiple taxes airline have to pay. Why our airline ticket is so expensive. At some point, we were touted at over 5 to 10 different taxes that we have to pay. And that's why you see, marginally, the ticket that is selling for 2.5 million naira here is 500,000 naira in Cotonou. And so now Nigerians now go to Cotonou to be able to cut costs to fly out. That's a new trend we're having in town now.
Maybe that's part of our plans for inter-Africa trade. Make it more expensive here. I mean, just on a lighter note, but really important. The ongoing Africa Aviation Conference in Abuja, and Nigeria is really proud to be hosting this particular conference. A number of issues have come up, and Mr. Festus Keyamo, representing the president yesterday, had highlighted these updates with regards to improvements in the aviation industry. However, as you talk about quick wins, the VP of IATA for Middle East and Africa had said that Nigeria, and Abuja Airport in particular, is the most expensive airport in Africa because of multiple taxes. That Lagos is very close in terms of how expensive it's taxing for the airlines who had to come here, and so you can understand then the attendant effect on prices and other costs. He also highlighted some of the challenges that the aviation industry faces and why prices are high. Obviously, the forex comes into play as well, and then aviation fuel, the multiple taxation, inefficient airport. These are some of the areas that I'm hoping the Minister for Aviation and Aerospace Development would tackle, especially to provide a conducive environment for aviation to thrive in Nigeria.
Okay, I have interest in some other issues before I talk about Nigeria. Elon Musk, his biography, written by Walter Isaacson, was launched first in Beijing, the Chinese version. It's also now been launched in the United States. I don't know whether you have read it, but it will be interesting to see what Walter Isaacson has to say about Elon Musk. One of the things in the book is about whether or not, Elon Musk interfered in the war between Russia and Ukraine using Starlinks to make an intervention by Ukraine impossible. Second issue, which I may like you to respond to briefly, is that President Ruto has spent 1 year in office. We've been talking about 100 years here. In fact, you were so fascinated with Kenya that at a point we thought maybe our wife is going to come from Kenya, but after a while you drifted away from Kenya. But Williams Ruto has spent a year in office, and he made the economy his major priority. But he's not been able to achieve that much, with regard to the poor people that he said will have access to credit. Yes, he has brought down inflation a little bit, but interest rates are at an all-time high in Kenya. So please, when you have time, that's your other country. Kenya, every week, you tell us why you no longer talk about Kenya. But to come to Nigeria, Festus Keyamo was talking about the aviation sector in the interest, or he was speaking for President Tinubu. What I saw in that story is that, yes, President Tinubu, he seems to be listening to us. I told you that this week I wrote a column in which I said it's not just about Emirates or Etihad. There are issues also of interest to airline operators in Nigeria. And in that speech at the Africa Aviation Summit, President Tinubu said, he's going to look at the concerns of indigenous airline operators, particularly with access to FX. So when I saw that, I thought, well, he seems to be listening. The same way in which they didn't make a big dance out of his return to Nigeria. So maybe sometimes these people listen. Right. Maybe President Tinubu takes time out to read what we write. Of course. Because it will be really tragic for us to talk to other people and they don't listen. Many people think because they have position, they have opportunities, they don't listen. And that's a big problem that we have in this country. So I thought it's a good thing to see that President Tinubu is listening. As for the EU, yes, talking about Chinese e-cars, it's about competition. Yeah. The EU president says, EU Commission president says, we're going to look into anti-subsidy legislation that China cannot be providing cheap cars and be enjoying subsidy and then taking the whole market. Yeah. This whole issue about a coming conflict with China, that's the subtext in that regard. Each zone trying to protect his own interests. And China seems to be the big issue here. Although China Foreign Ministry has told us that we should stop worrying about China, that they will be fine anyway. Yeah. The spokesperson, Mao Ming, tells us that don't worry about China, they are fine. Whether their growth rate is 5% or 5.5%
or whatever,
the West should stop their propaganda. I'm sure that will be the standard response from China. But that's the way it is. Those are the big issues in my view.
Thank you very much,
Rotus,
for your time. Look forward to seeing you again tomorrow morning.